Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Angela Coté. Hi, Angela.
Hello, Addie. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so excited to have you on this podcast. So both you and I belong to the AI Leadership Collective, and we just met in one of the sessions, and I was so impressed by what you do. And I want to tell our listeners about your business. So first of all, I'm going to start with your bio, but what you do is so important. It's so different than, and it's needed because and it has to do with franchises. So I did interview on my podcast several people that basically help form franchises. But what you do is you help make them better and you train the coaches for the franchises.
You got it.
Which is pretty incredible. And your story, how you started, is very good as well. So we're going to dive into it. But first of all, your bio. So you're the founder of AC Inc. and a powerhouse when it comes to helping business grow by building strong systems for people, not just processes. So it's like the systems for people, which I love. And with a background rooted in franchising, and we're going to hear about your story, both as a franchisee and a daughter of a legacy brand founder, you bring a unique blend of real-world experience and practical systems thinking to business growth. So you keep it real, you make growth simple, and you help leaders stop putting out fires so they can start building what lasts, which is beautiful. So Angela, tell us your story, first of all. How did you get to do what you're doing?
I have to jump in with something though, Addie. So yes, I like to keep it real, and I can't, like, the powerhouse thing is still making me uncomfortable. So we
have to tell the listeners, the powerhouse was ChatGPT decided that Angela is a powerhouse based on everything. And I agree with him, whatever. But yes.
Right. Sure, we'll use powerhouse. ChatGPT said it. I was like, are we sure we want to? Anyway, yeah, that's a little uncomfortable. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And you did a great job of highlighting the key components, right? The human element, the importance of systems, that I come from a background in franchising. Did you want me to start with the background, a little bit of my background?
Let's start a story. You have a great story, so tell the story. What is the story, and how did you get to where you are at today?
Thank you. Well, I was 5 when my dad started a franchise company in Canada that grew to almost 500 locations over the years. And so I just, whether I liked it or not, I was learning all the time. I was in the back of the first store. I spent time dressing up as Kelly Kebab at grand openings, throw me in the costume, send me out to the road to wave in cars. And I spent time working in our stores. But then in the late 90s, this was a pivotal point. I didn't realize how pivotal it would be, but I was sent out into the field to support franchisees. And so for anybody that isn't catching this, stop and think for a minute. Imagine you just invested $400,000 in a franchise because you know that you want to get support, you want to use the brand, and you want to be a business owner. And now a lot of these people were older males, 50, 60-year-old males who were doing a later in life change. The person that shows up to help you be successful and help you teach you how to run your business is a 20-year-old female boss's daughter. And I'm sure you can imagine what they were thinking, like, what are you going to be able to teach me about business? So I got, thrown out to the wolves. I knew the business, but I didn't know how to coach franchisees. I didn't know how to get them to do what they needed to do and to listen to me. So spent a few years in that role. And then eventually I had the opportunity to become a franchisee go get financing and switch to the franchisee side and open stores on Vancouver Island. And so then I was, and now I saw what it was like to be a franchisee and have people trying to support me and trying to help me. And in my case, I didn't really need help with, the operations of the business. I had taught people that, but I'd never been a business owner. So that's where I saw the gaps. And fast forward to what I do now, having realized that is we need to help people in the franchise world understand that, because a lot of executives or even franchise founders don't realize how it feels to be a franchisee and not get that kind of support that makes you motivated and want to be accountable to your goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when you give the support, you actually have the human health element as part of that system and a part of that support, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance? Let's talk about the balance between that human element that is so needed and also accountability. I mean, you also make sure that the coaches are holding the franchisees accountable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
And actually,
the coaches are holding the franchisees accountable, and you are coaching the coaches on how to hold the franchisees accountable.
yeah, I think it's good that you're clarifying that for anybody that doesn't quite know how it works, because even if you're not in the world of franchising, don't turn this podcast off, because I guarantee you there will be
Yeah, it
points
can
that
work for the business because you want to have somebody in the business that is basically holding accountable the other units. So let's say, for instance, if you are, that's exactly right. It's not just for franchisees, but if you are looking at your business and you go, okay, I want to duplicate a franchise, although I'm not a franchise, in terms of I want to have repeatability, I want to have accountability, I want to make sure that every single time it's being repeated, because I hear it from entrepreneurs all the time. I want to have like the McDonald's process, the concept of every single time the French fries are going to be the same. That's like a franchise concept. That's why people want systems, because they want them to be uniform. They want predictability. They want consistency. But now we're going to use that we're going to basically use coaching in order to make sure it happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then just for clarity for anybody that's listening, so the franchisor is the overarching company. Usually, a founder starts a business and they use franchising to build it out. The franchisee, they're paying royalties, and it's a unique relationship because the franchisee wants to be successful and they're supposed to follow the systems of the franchisor. But when they get into the business, often they're like, I'm on the front line. I see it differently. I think I should do it differently. So that coach, we call them at my company, we call them field coaches, just a generic term for that person. They work for the franchisor, and their job is to try to get the franchisee motivated and wanting to be accountable to their goals. But as I was saying, in my case, and majority of the industry isn't really putting the energy and focus on that person and recognizing that field coach that works for the franchisor has a big role, and probably the most difficult role. And now coming back to the question about the human element and systems, I just thought I'd clarify that part, because you and I both understand it because we've worked with franchises, but sometimes people kind of get lost with all this F word.
Right.
The F word, I call it. So the human element piece, what happens is people, sign up to be a coach, they apply for this job, they get in the role, and they know what the systems are the franchisee is supposed to follow, whether that's the marketing they're doing or the way they make the hamburger or the fries, or clean the carpets if it's a carpet cleaning franchise or whatever. And that field coach is often the one responsible for the franchisee to be compliant to the brand so that they're consistent across the brand. But they don't have they're just like, why won't they follow the systems? Like, I'm going in there and I'm telling them you have to follow the systems. So the human element piece is, how do we, and we can go deeper, I'll see where you want to go with this, but how do we get that person, that coach, to be able to apply some human element when there's a system? Like, do they have flexibility to break away from the system, or how do they balance that? So it comes down to that person that recognizing that they have the keys to drive the franchisee profitability and success if they're properly coached and trained.
Absolutely. And that's the coaching, and making sure that we can coach and continue with the coaching. Okay, so how do you use systems to create a great culture, even if it's remote?
Yeah, yeah, and which often field coaches are working with franchisees, on Zoom. They're not always going out. They're called field coaches, but they're often coaching like this. So it really comes down to having the systems, but as far as culture goes, like you can operationalize culture by, for example, having core values. If the company has strong core values, and whether it's what to bring on a franchisee, or if we talk just in general in a business, any business, if you have core values, that's how you decide who joins your team. You could use, I'll give you an example of what we do at AC Inc. So we're a team of about 12, and across North America, we're fully remote. And so we have our core values are very real, like action equals growth. That's one of my favorite ones. It's about taking action when we don't feel ready, but how we learn by taking action, not by thinking. We have own it. So taking ownership of, self-reflection and that kind of thing. So we have our core values. We have a team chat where we do shout outs for the core values, right? So to me, that's a system. A system is that once a week, I try to make sure I recognize somebody on the team, or the team can recognize each other, but that once a week, somebody's being recognized for a core value that fits within us. Another area is the accountability. I think people don't think of accountability as a cultural thing. They think of
No, it's
culture.
interesting because sometimes you hear it on the core values like accountability, or we are held accountable. So how do you define accountability? Let's talk about accountability as a core value and part of the culture.
Yeah. Well, I think that when accountability means we have clarity for what's expected of us, and we follow through, and we report back, right? And it might even mean I didn't get done the thing I said I was going to do, but I'm going to tell you that proactively, as opposed to like messing around with how it might affect the team if I don't get something done. So for us at AC Inc., accountability looks like we have our weekly, we have well, on Mondays, we have a chat where we have to go on and tell one thing that we know we need to be accountable to that week. That's a little bit beyond our usual work. So we come on the chat, we actually use voice messaging, because I think you and I talked a little bit about this actually at the collective, because it helps with the culture if you can hear each other's voices. So we come on
That's
and we
right.
say one, right? And one thing we're going to
But
be
you
accountable.
have to, because that's how you break through you have to have the human element, and that's when you hear the voice. I agree with you. And I actually, after we spoke, I revised an internal policy for my company in terms of like when we write, like we use Slack. So
Yeah.
if you feel like it's going to be misinterpreted in some ways, just use the voice features, so they can also, the other person on the other side can actually hear your tone and your intent.
Yeah.
And it can
Yeah.
save so much, as opposed to, oh, she's mad at me, Angela sent me this message, and and I misinterpret, and then I can misinterpret it. But if I hear your voice and I can hear the tone of your voice, go like, oh, okay, that's what needed, I can do that.
Yeah, it really helps with that. And that just the human connection. So we have the Monday one for the accountability. We also have a Wednesday think tank where the people that are coaching our clients and working with our clients, we all come together, and everybody has to bring, it's kind of like a mastermind, and they bring a challenge, if they don't have something they're stuck on, they just bring something to share and update. So we're hearing each other's work. So that's a system, right? Like that's a system that's helping with our culture. So I think that recognizing, and that's accountability too, because it's sharing, it's keeping each other in the loop. We've got our scorecards, like we run on EOS Traction, which is an operating system that, we have scorecards that we measure every week. Everybody has certain things they're measured on, but they're excited to be accountable to, because the other piece of accountability is the motivation. Nobody wants to be held accountable when they're not motivated to get the thing that they're working towards. And so that also brings the human element back in. Like we can sit there all day long and tell an employee, or try to tell a franchisee, here's what you need to do. This is, here's the system we're going to follow. But if they're not motivated to do it, then good luck with the accountability and with the overall culture.
That's exactly right. So you have, that's I always say, it's systems, it's processes, or people, or both. So that's basically what you're talking about, is you have a system and you provide a system so people can follow, but it can also be not a problem, but a situation with people. So we need to make sure that the people factor is in as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Angela, tell us, in terms of expanding your business, your plans, where are we going with that, with your business?
Well, it was definitely exciting to be at the AI Driven Leadership Collective, and really, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, really be focused on our strategic planning and strategic thinking about our businesses using AI, but ultimately I think one of the common themes there was we all need to think bigger because we can.
That's right.
Right. So, what I'll give a bit of context for what we're currently doing at AC Inc., which is, uh, we keep getting told, and looks like we're the only ones doing what we're doing, which is kind of fun. So we're disrupting a little bit. The traditional way of supporting franchisees is, they have our number, they've got a great operations manual, which is important, they've got their LMS, their learning management system. That's all important. But that's bare minimum. You have to provide that. If you don't provide that, then you're not really following the obligations as a franchisor. I mean, some of that might be a little above the obligations, but if you want them to be successful, franchisees, traditional support looks like franchisees having the field coach's number and texting them when they have a question or when they need a fire put out, and also giving them marketing assets to use, right? Things like that. That's the traditional way. And what we're going in and implementing into brands and teaching is a more proactive approach, where let's get out ahead. And that's what systems do, right? Let's get out ahead of these things and put, in our case, we call it the strategic growth coaching framework, which is a full system of how to coach franchisees. Everything from how often should you meet with a franchisee? Like, how often should a franchisor's field coach be meeting with them? Is it every week, every 2 weeks, once a month? What does that call look like? What's the agenda for that call? Like, where do you start? How do you deal with a franchisee that gets on the call and just starts yelling at you because it's your fault that the company changed something, or POS system, or and how do you uncover a franchisee's goals? So this is all part of this. It's basically an operations manual or a system for coaching. It's called the Strategic Growth Coaching Framework. And we bring that into the brand and get it all customized for them. The other thing we're doing is professional development for the field teams. So those field coaches, we provide education and training, and we created a certification program. It's the first ever of its kind. And for the viewer, people that are maybe seeing this on video, this is the certificate they get.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, it's the cover. It's like the same one that Harvard uses. And so we've got over about 120 people in North America that are certified by my company, by my team, as field coaches, which means that they've been through that whole framework. They've learned how to deal with the situational leadership, how to get franchisees bought in, how to uncover their goals. And that comes back to, then you asked, like, where are we going with this? Well, this is my bigger vision that I haven't talked a lot about, but I'm really excited about it. And this is overall bringing the human element back into the franchise company overall, because what I saw growing up, my dad, successful with this almost 500 location franchise that he eventually sold. It was that human to human relationship. And it wasn't just the field team that understood it. He made sure that even the people in the accounting department, the people in the construction department, legal, that everybody understood that this is everything. If we don't have the relationships with our franchisees, we're going to just hit a major growth roadblock, and we're going to implode. And so, teaching back to systems, it's been shocking to me over the past 5 to 7 years of networking with franchisors, how they still often don't get it, that it's systems and people. Actually, people first, systems second.
So, Angela, as you were talking, I was like, yes, because what you're creating is that frame, And you describe it as systems, but it's also, that's why you have the coaches. That's why you're coaching the coaches in order to actually add the human element, which is incredible. And I can totally see the expansion and thinking big and providing something that is very needed. So if our listeners, anyone from our listeners would like to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, if they're on LinkedIn, if they're not, they should be. Because if you're a business person and you're not on LinkedIn, you're missing out on an incredible networking opportunity. I've been on it for years, and it has totally helped me grow my business by making connections, and finding clients and things like that. So my favorite place is always LinkedIn. So Angela Coté, look for red. I'm usually wearing red, not today, but look for red.
She wears red and stands out and has. That's why ChatGPT described her as a powerhouse, because that's what it is. You show up as a powerhouse. You ask great questions, and you created a whole business model out of a need, which is another thing that our listeners can learn from the episode today. Even though, let's say, they're not franchisors, it's look for a need, you look for a passion, and you create a business based on it, which I think is beautiful.
And it's taken a lot of time, to be clear. Like we could do another whole episode on how all the roadblocks I hit, and I'm sure you have those same stories. It's not like, oh, it was fun and easy. Like a lot of tears.
We'll do that one. I mean, I think we need to do a sequel anyway to this one, so we'll do that. We'll talk about that, the good, bad, and the ugly. Today was the good, then we'll talk about the rest.
I think we should. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Well, I sure appreciate this, Addie. I love what you're doing. It's so important in all businesses and franchising and beyond. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. And thank you for being a guest on this podcast and sharing all this wisdom. Thank you.
I got to say my outro. Go be awesome.
Go be awesome. That's right. I have that sticker you gave me. Go be awesome. Okay.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.